Imagine a hypoid lawyer, fueled by endless cups of coffee, relentlessly chasing the next big win, sacrificing sleep, relationships, and any semblance of inner peace in the process. What if this relentless pursuit of achievement is not the path to fulfillment, but a recipe for burnout and despair? Perhaps Charles Bukowski, a poet who seemingly rejected ambition altogether, was onto something profound. Bukowski's "Don't Push" philosophy offers a counterintuitive approach to life, a way to reduce stress and cultivate authenticity by embracing acceptance, non-resistance, and finding beauty in the mundane. It's about going with the flow, not forcing things. Picture that lawyer hammering away at a deal, compared to Bukowski letting his poems pour out of him, unfiltered and raw. But why should you, caught in the daily grind, care about the musings of a hard-drinking poet? Consider this: stress levels are soaring. Anxiety is rampant. Burnout is an epidemic in our modern society, driven by the relentless societal pressure to achieve, acquire, and become successful. But imagine a life with less stress, increased self-awareness, improved relationships, and a deeper sense of meaning. Imagine trading that relentless pressure for a sense of peace. This video will delve into the deeper meaning of "Don't Push," challenging conventional definitions of success and offering practical strategies for applying it to your everyday life. We will uncover the power of radical acceptance, the liberation of anti-ambition, the joy of finding beauty in the mundane, the strength of authenticity, and the freedom of non-resistance. Bukowski wasn't operating in a vacuum. He grappled with the same philosophical questions that have haunted humanity for centuries. Existentialism, with its focus on individual freedom and responsibility, resonated deeply with his worldview. But "Don't Push" isn't about passively giving up or sliding into apathy. It's not about becoming a couch potato who never tries anything. It's about aligning with the natural flow of life, understanding when to act and when to surrender. Acceptance empowers action by removing resistance, while apathy leads to stagnation. We'll examine Bukowski's life, his writing, and the ideas that shaped him. Think of a musician struggling with writer's block, forcing notes that sound strained and lifeless. Now contrast that with a jazz musician improvising freely, letting the music flow through them, creating something beautiful and spontaneous. But was Bukowski truly content? Or was he simply masking his pain with alcohol and cynicism? Was his "Don't Push" philosophy a form of self-deception? Did it lead to genuine fulfillment, or just a life of quiet desperation? His life was far from simple, and his philosophy is full of surprising nuances. We'll see how his choices defied societal norms and expectations, questioning what it truly means to be successful and fulfilled. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll see how Bukowski's "Don't Push" philosophy can help you find peace and purpose in a world that demands constant striving. So, what exactly is this "Don't Push" philosophy Bukowski espoused, and how can we break it down into actionable principles? At its heart lies a trifecta of tenets: radical acceptance, anti-ambition, and finding beauty in the mundane. Understanding these is key to unlocking the power of his seemingly simple approach to life. "Don't Push," at its genesis, is about radical acceptance, a willingness to embrace the inherent disorder and unpredictability of life, even when it feels uncomfortable or unfair. It's about acknowledging that chaos is not an anomaly, but an intrinsic part of the human experience. Bukowski embodied this by accepting poverty and working dead-end jobs, recognizing them as the price he paid for creative freedom. Consider his stint as a mail carrier, a grueling, monotonous job that many would find soul-crushing. But Bukowski didn't constantly rail against his circumstances. Rather, he mined the experience for material, transforming the mundane into art. Conversely, think of someone stuck in a job they despise, endlessly complaining about their boss, their workload, and their lack of recognition, yet paralyzed by fear and inertia, doing nothing to change their situation. Bukowski would argue that true freedom lies not in escaping hardship, but in accepting it and finding a way to make it your own. But how can we apply this principle to our own lives? Start by examining the areas where you experience the most resistance. Are you constantly fighting against circumstances, trying to control outcomes that are ultimately beyond your reach? Perhaps it's a toxic relationship, a demanding job, or an unrealistic expectation you've placed upon yourself. Radical acceptance doesn't mean passively condoning negative situations. Instead, it means acknowledging the reality of the situation without judgment, freeing up your energy to focus on what you can control: your response, your perspective, and your actions. From this place of acceptance, you can then make conscious choices about how to move forward, whether it's setting boundaries, seeking change, or simply letting go. This acceptance naturally bleeds into the next tenet: anti-ambition. Bukowski vehemently rejected conventional notions of success, the relentless pursuit of wealth, fame, and power that drives so many in modern society. He saw the rat race as a soul-crushing trap, a pointless exercise in chasing fleeting rewards. For him, success wasn't measured in dollars or accolades, but in autonomy and creative output, the freedom to live life on his own terms. Remember his famous line, "Find what you love and let it kill you." It's not advocating self-destruction, but advocating passion. It means finding something so meaningful that you're willing to dedicate everything to it, even if it means sacrificing conventional comforts. Contrast this with the modern influencer, meticulously curating their online persona, obsessed with followers, likes, and brand deals, constantly striving for validation from strangers. Bukowski would likely view this as a hollow pursuit, a desperate attempt to fill an inner void with external approval. His anti-ambition wasn't about laziness or a lack of drive, but a conscious rejection of societal expectations. He chose to prioritize his own artistic vision over the pursuit of external validation. This doesn't mean we should all abandon our careers and embrace a life of bohemian poverty. Rather, it challenges us to question our own motivations. Are we pursuing goals that truly align with our values, or are we simply chasing after someone else's definition of success? Are we working to live or living to work? Bukowski encourages us to redefine success on our own terms, measuring it by our own sense of fulfillment, meaning, and authenticity. And what did Bukowski choose to focus on instead of success and status? The answer lies in finding beauty in the mundane, in elevating the everyday experiences that most people overlook. He possessed an extraordinary ability to see poetry in the seemingly banal: a bar fight, a bus ride, a chance encounter with a stranger. He transformed the ordinary into art, finding profound meaning in the simplest of moments. Consider his poem, "So You Want to Be a Writer," where he advises aspiring writers to only write if it comes unchained from their heart and mind. He wasn't glorifying grand adventures or exotic locales. He was finding inspiration in the grit and grime of everyday life. Compare this with today's aspirational travel influencers, showcasing picture-perfect sunsets and luxurious accommodations, creating a fantasy that is often unattainable and ultimately unsatisfying for their followers. This ability to find beauty in the mundane is not an innate talent, but a cultivated skill. It requires a shift in perspective, a willingness to slow down and pay attention to the world around us. It means noticing the subtle details that others miss: the way the light falls on a building, the sound of rain on a window pane, the expressions on people's faces. It's about appreciating the small joys and simple pleasures that life has to offer, rather than constantly chasing after extraordinary experiences. Bukowski teaches us that meaning is not something we find out there, but something we create from within, by imbuing our everyday experiences with attention, gratitude, and a sense of wonder. So we see how Bukowski viewed the world, but how did he function within it? How did Don't Push play out in the practical realities of his daily existence? Let's examine 3 key aspects of his life: his writing process, his relationships, and his career path, to see this philosophy in action. Bukowski's writing process was a testament to the power of don't push. He famously didn't force it. He didn't rigidly adhere to schedules, outlines, or writing prompts. Instead, he allowed the words to flow organically, writing when inspiration struck, often fueled by copious amounts of alcohol and cigarettes. His style was raw, unfiltered, and unapologetically honest, reflecting the chaotic nature of his own life. Think of him sitting at his typewriter late at night, the words pouring out of him in a torrent of emotion and experience. Now, think about a writer who meticulously plans every detail of their novel, agonizing over each sentence, constantly battling writer's block, and experiencing crippling frustration. Bukowski would argue that the best writing comes from a place of surrender, from allowing the unconscious to speak through you without the interference of the ego. This isn't to say that discipline and structure are inherently bad, but it challenges the idea that creativity can be forced or manufactured. Bukowski understood that inspiration is a fickle mistress, and that sometimes the best thing you can do is simply get out of its way. He embraced the unpredictable nature of the creative process, trusting that the words would come when they were ready. This approach freed him from the pressure of perfectionism, allowing him to produce a vast body of work that resonated with readers around the world. His relationships, too, reflected his "don't push" philosophy. Bukowski was known for his turbulent and often volatile relationships with women. He didn't try to mold his partners into his ideal, nor did he attempt to control or change them. He accepted them as they were, flaws and all, often celebrating their imperfections. Consider the characters in his novels complex, flawed, and often deeply damaged individuals. He didn't shy away from their darkness, but rather explored it with unflinching honesty. Contrast this with someone who constantly tries to fix or change their partner, nitpicking their flaws, imposing their own expectations, and ultimately suffocating the relationship. Bukowski understood that true love is not about control, but about acceptance. It's about seeing the other person for who they truly are, warts and all, and loving them anyway. This doesn't mean tolerating abuse or harmful behavior. It means recognizing that everyone is a work in progress, and that true connection comes from embracing each other's imperfections. By letting go of the need to control, Bukowski created space for genuine intimacy and vulnerability in his relationships. Finally, let's examine Bukowski's long and winding career path. He didn't set out to become a famous writer. He didn't meticulously plan his career trajectory. Instead, he drifted through a series of low-paying, dead-end jobs, from dishwasher to mail carrier, using these experiences as fodder for his writing. Imagine a timeline of his various jobs, a seemingly random assortment of unrelated positions, lacking any clear sense of ambition or direction. Now, contrast this with someone who meticulously plans their career from a young age, carefully climbing the corporate ladder, sacrificing personal fulfillment for professional success. Bukowski's lack of career ambition wasn't a sign of failure, but a deliberate choice. He understood that true freedom lies not in achieving a prestigious job title, but in maintaining control over your own time and energy. He used his various jobs as opportunities to observe the world, to collect stories, and to develop his unique voice. By embracing the detours and unexpected turns in his career path, he created a rich tapestry of experience that informed his writing and shaped his worldview. However, Bukowski's "don't push" philosophy is often misunderstood. Some might see it as a justification for laziness, irresponsibility, or even harmful behavior. It's crucial to clarify these misconceptions and understand the nuances of his approach. "Don't push" is not synonymous with apathy or passive resignation. It's not about giving up on your dreams or settling for a life of mediocrity. It's about accepting what you cannot control and focusing your energy on what you can. It's about choosing your battles wisely, expending your effort where it will have the greatest impact. Think of someone who is facing a chronic illness. They can rail against their fate, becoming consumed by anger and resentment, or they can accept their condition and focus on managing their symptoms, improving their quality of life. and finding joy in the present moment. Bukowski would argue that the latter approach is not only more empowering, but also more effective, as opposed to the person who makes no attempt to improve their life. Furthermore, "Don't push" involves recognizing the illusion of control. We often cling to the belief that we can control our circumstances, our relationships, and even our own emotions. But the truth is that life is inherently unpredictable, and that much of what happens to us is beyond our control. Trying to control everything leads to stress, anxiety, and frustration, while surrendering to the flow can paradoxically lead to greater power and freedom. Remember the saying, "What you resist persists." It speaks to the futility of trying to force outcomes that are not meant to be. Instead, Bukowski encourages us to release our grip on control and trust in the natural unfolding of events. As opposed to the person who is constantly micromanaging their life, it's also vital to understand that "don't push" doesn't mean avoiding challenges altogether. It's about navigating them with non-resistance, finding the path of least resistance, and going with the current. Picture a boat navigating a river. It can either fight against the current, expending enormous energy and making little progress, or it can adjust its sails, use the current to its advantage, and reach its destination with greater ease. Bukowski advocates for the latter approach, urging us to find the natural flow of life and to work with it, rather than against it. Unlike someone always fighting against the current, at the heart of "don't push" lies radical authenticity. It's about aligning your actions with your true self, not conforming to societal expectations or seeking external validation. Bukowski's unfiltered writing style is a prime example of authentic expression. He didn't censor himself. He didn't try to please anyone. He simply wrote what was true for him, regardless of how shocking or controversial it might be. Contrast this with the carefully curated personas we see on social media, where people often present a false image of themselves in order to gain approval and attention. However, we must also acknowledge the potential dark side of "don't push." Some might use it as an excuse for irresponsibility, self-indulgence, or even harmful behavior. It's easy to fall into the trap of using it as a justification for not taking responsibility for your actions, blaming others for your problems, or indulging in destructive habits. The risk of using "don't push" as an excuse for not taking responsibility is substantial, so that's where intention should come in. Ultimately, life is a series of pushes and flows, a constant dance between action and surrender. "Don't push" doesn't mean never pushing, but knowing when to push and when to let go, to use effort strategically and intentionally. It suggests that you need to work hard in cycles rather than all the time. There are times when we need to exert ourselves, to strive for our goals, to overcome obstacles. But there are also times when we need to step back, to rest, to allow things to unfold naturally. Bukowski encourages us to develop an awareness of these rhythms, to recognize when we are pushing too hard, and to adjust our approach accordingly. Not like someone who burns themselves out constantly, but how can we discern these rhythms? What are some practical strategies for applying "don't push" to our everyday lives? But it's crucial to acknowledge the challenges and limitations of the "don't push" philosophy before we proceed any further. It would be a disservice to Bukowski's nuanced view of the world, and to you as a viewer, to present this approach as a panacea. One of the most significant risks is the potential for passivity, leading to missed opportunities and stagnation. After all, there's a fine line between accepting the flow and simply avoiding taking initiative. How can we differentiate between the two? "Don't push" is not an excuse to avoid pursuing goals or taking necessary action. It's not about sitting back and waiting for success to magically appear. It's about discerning which efforts are fruitful and which are futile. Consider someone who avoids applying for jobs because they're waiting for the right opportunity to come to them. They might rationalize their inaction by claiming they're simply trusting the universe, but in reality, they're likely driven by fear of rejection or a lack of self-belief. Bukowski wouldn't endorse this behavior. Instead, he'd likely encourage them to strategically apply for roles that genuinely align with their values and skills, while simultaneously accepting that rejection is a part of the process. He'd advocate for persistent, focused effort, not passive avoidance. Compare this with someone who strategically targets their job search, tailoring their resume and cover letter to each specific position, networking with industry professionals, and consistently following up on applications, all while maintaining a detached attitude towards the outcome. The key here is intention and mindful action. As Carl Jung noted, thinking is difficult, therefore most people judge. It requires conscious effort to distinguish between accepting the present moment and passively resigning to a less than desirable fate. The former empowers action, while the latter breeds stagnation. So, how do we navigate this distinction? By paying close attention to our motivations and our internal state. Are we avoiding action out of fear, laziness, or a genuine sense that it's not the right time? Are we pushing ourselves relentlessly, driven by anxiety and a need for control, or are we acting from a place of clarity, purpose, and alignment? Another challenge lies in navigating societal expectations. We live in a culture that constantly bombards us with messages about success, achievement, and conformity. Maintaining a "don't push" attitude in such an environment can feel like swimming against the tide. How do we resist these external pressures and stay true to our own values? Bukowski himself faced criticism for his unconventional lifestyle choices, his rejection of traditional employment, and his often crude writing style. He was an outsider, a misfit, a rebel against the status quo. Yet, he remained steadfast in his commitment to his own authentic vision, despite the disapproval of many. Contrast this with the societal rewards showered upon high achievers, the accolades, the wealth, the social status. It's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of these external rewards, even if they don't truly align with our values. One practical strategy for dealing with social pressure is to consciously define your own metrics of success. What truly matters to you? What brings you a sense of fulfillment and meaning? Is it wealth, fame, power, or something else entirely? Once you have a clear understanding of your own values, you can begin to filter out the external noise and focus on what truly matters. Another strategy is to cultivate a strong sense of self-acceptance. The more you accept yourself, flaws and all, the less you'll need external validation. As Bukowski famously wrote, "The problem with the world is that the intelligent people are full of doubts, while the stupid ones are full of confidence." Embracing your imperfections can be a radical act of defiance against a culture that relentlessly promotes unrealistic ideals. Applying "don't push" to relationships also presents unique challenges. How can we practice acceptance without becoming a doormat? How can we set healthy boundaries and communicate our expectations while still embracing the inherent imperfections of our partners? It's important to remember that acceptance is not the same as enabling. It doesn't mean tolerating abuse, disrespect, or harmful behavior. Consider someone who accepts their partner's flaws without addressing their abusive behavior, rationalizing their inaction with the belief that they're simply being understanding. Bukowski wouldn't condone this. While acceptance is essential, so is self-respect and the establishment of healthy boundaries. The key is to differentiate between accepting someone's fundamental nature and accepting their harmful actions. We can accept that our partner has flaws, quirks, and imperfections, while still setting clear boundaries about what behavior is acceptable and what is not. As the saying goes, love the sinner, hate the sin. Communication is paramount. Clearly and assertively communicate your expectations and needs, while also being open to hearing your partner's perspective. If your partner is unwilling to respect your boundaries or address their harmful behavior, it may be necessary to reevaluate the relationship. Given these potential pitfalls, how can we effectively integrate "don't push" into our lives? How can we harness its power without falling into passivity or enabling harmful behavior? The answer lies in combining it with intention, mindfulness, and strategic action. By paying close attention to our internal and external cues, we can better discern when to push and when to allow, when to strive and when to surrender. This is where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness can significantly enhance the practice of don't push. By paying attention to our thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations in the present moment, we can become more aware of when we're resisting the flow of life and when we're aligned with it. Consider using mindfulness meditation to become aware of resistance and tension in the body, noticing the subtle ways in which you're clenching your jaw, tightening your shoulders, or furrowing your brow. These physical sensations can be indicators that you're pushing too hard, that you're trying to force an outcome that's not meant to be. Now contrast this with someone who is mindlessly striving, oblivious to the signals their body is sending them, pushing themselves to the point of exhaustion and burnout. Mindfulness allows us to approach life with greater awareness and intention, making conscious choices about how to respond to each situation. It's not about suppressing our emotions or avoiding challenges, but about cultivating a greater sense of inner peace and equanimity. By observing our thoughts and feelings without judgment, we can begin to loosen their grip on us, freeing ourselves from the need to control everything. Furthermore, don't push can be combined with strategic action to create a powerful synergy. Acceptance can free up energy to focus on activities that are truly aligned with our values and goals, while strategic action can help us to manifest our intentions in the world. Consider someone using the don't push philosophy to identify and eliminate unnecessary tasks from their to-do list, freeing up time and energy for creative pursuits that genuinely inspire them. They might delegate tasks, automate processes, or simply say no to commitments that don't align with their priorities. Compare this with someone wasting time and energy on distractions and obligations that drain their resources and leave them feeling unfulfilled. By focusing our energy on what truly matters, we can achieve greater results with less effort. We can become more efficient, more effective, and more fulfilled. This requires a clear understanding of our values, our goals, and our strengths. It requires a willingness to experiment, to take risks, and to learn from our mistakes. But most of all, it requires a deep trust in our own intuition and a belief in our ability to create a meaningful life. Ultimately, the don't push philosophy encourages us to redefine success on our own terms, basing it on personal values and a sense of inner fulfillment rather than external validation. What does success truly mean to you? Is it wealth, fame, power, recognition, or something else entirely? Perhaps it's creative expression, meaningful relationships, personal growth, or making a positive impact on the world. Bukowski, for example, prioritized creative expression over financial gain. He was willing to live in poverty, to work dead-end jobs, in order to have the freedom to write what he wanted, when he wanted. Contrast this with people who are solely chasing wealth and status, sacrificing their health, their relationships, and their personal values in the process. Take a moment to practically define your personal values. Write down the 5 things that are most important to you in life. These might be things like creativity, freedom, connection, authenticity, or service. Once you've identified your values, examine your life and see how well your actions align with them. Are you living in accordance with your values, or are you sacrificing them for the sake of external rewards? If there's a disconnect, consider making changes to bring your life more into alignment with your values. As we consider the value of living by your own values, it's impossible not to consider Bukowski's legacy and the complex question of authenticity, which we'll address next. Let's turn our attention to the transformative power of surrender, not as a sign of weakness, but as a conscious and courageous choice. It's about releasing the need to control every single facet of life, an idea that resonates deeply with Bukowski's don't push philosophy. After all, how much energy do we waste trying to force outcomes, micromanaging situations, and clinging to rigid plans? Consider a project at work. You've meticulously planned every step, assigned tasks, and set deadlines. Yet, despite your best efforts, unforeseen obstacles arise. A team member falls ill, a key resource becomes unavailable, or the client changes their mind. Do you stubbornly cling to your original plan, forcing your team to work overtime, cutting corners, and sacrificing quality? Or do you embrace the chaos, adapt your approach, and find creative solutions that work within the new constraints? The beauty of surrender lies in its paradoxical nature. By releasing our grip on control, we often gain more influence and freedom. Resisting the natural flow of life creates friction, tension, and resistance, while aligning with it generates momentum, ease, and unexpected opportunities. Trying to force things often leads to burnout and frustration. Think of it like this: when you fight a strong current while swimming, you quickly tire and risk being swept away. But if you relax, go with the flow, and angle yourself toward the shore, you conserve energy and increase your chances of reaching your destination. Bukowski's life provides a compelling illustration of this principle, particularly his early experiences with relentless rejection from publishers. For years, his work was met with silence or outright dismissal. Did he give up writing? No, but neither did he obsessively chase acceptance, bombarding editors with manuscripts or compromising his unique voice to conform to prevailing literary tastes. Instead, he continued to write, driven by an inner compulsion, trusting that eventually his work would find its audience. Rejection letters piled up, each one a potential blow to his ego, yet he persisted, unattached to the outcome. Imagine the frustration of receiving countless rejection slips, the temptation to abandon his artistic vision to seek a more conventional path. He submitted stories and poems to literary magazines, only to be met with form rejections, or worse, complete silence. His work was deemed too gritty, too vulgar, too unconventional for the mainstream. Consider an aspiring writer who receives a few rejections and immediately gives up, concluding that they lack talent or that the writing world is too competitive. They might shelve their manuscript, abandon their creative dreams, and seek a more realistic career path. This is the antithesis of Bukowski's approach. Bukowski saw rejection as an inevitable part of the process, not as a judgment on his worth or potential. He continued to write, to experiment, and to hone his craft, driven by an intrinsic love of language and a desire to express his unique perspective. Eventually, his persistence paid off. Small presses began to publish his work, and gradually he gained a following, a recognition and influence that mainstream writers never attain. His story is a testament to the power of surrender, of trusting the process, and of aligning oneself with the natural flow of life. This brings us to a crucial point. How do we find our own rhythm? How do we discern when to push and when to flow? After all, don't push is not a rigid rule, but a flexible guideline, a compass rather than a map. The ability to discern when to push and when to allow is vital for living a balanced and fulfilling life. So how do we develop this crucial skill? Cultivating discernment requires a combination of self-awareness, intuition, and experience. It means paying close attention to our internal cues, our energy levels, our emotions, our physical sensations, as well as to the external circumstances we face. It means developing a keen sense of timing, of recognizing when the path is open and when it's blocked. A beginner's mind, approaching new situations with openness and curiosity, can be an invaluable asset. Instead of clinging to preconceived notions or rigid expectations, we remain receptive to new information and adapt our approach accordingly. The concept of beginner's mind encourages us to approach each moment as if it were the first, without the baggage of past experiences or assumptions. In addition to cultivating a beginner's mind, it is extremely valuable to listen to your intuition. Developing your intuition can be a powerful tool for navigating the complexities of life and determining the appropriate course of action. The intuitive intelligence transcends rational thought, providing insights and guidance that can lead to more authentic and fulfilling choices. However, many of us have become disconnected from our intuition, ignoring its subtle whispers in favor of logic and reason. So how do we cultivate and trust this inner voice? Meditation, for instance, allows us to quiet the noise of the mind and access deeper levels of awareness. By creating space for stillness and introspection, we can become more attuned to our intuition and its subtle guidance. Here's an exercise. Find a quiet place where you won't be disturbed. Close your eyes and focus on your breath, noticing the rise and fall of your abdomen. As thoughts arise, simply observe them without judgment, allowing them to pass like clouds in the sky. After a few minutes, bring to mind a decision you're currently facing. Notice any feelings, images, or sensations that arise. Trust that these intuitive cues are providing valuable information, even if they don't make logical sense. Journaling can also be a valuable tool for exploring our intuition. By writing freely and without censorship, we can access thoughts and feelings that might otherwise remain hidden. Ask yourself open-ended questions about a situation, such as, what feels right about this? Or, what am I afraid of? Pay attention to the answers that arise, trusting that they're coming from a place of deep wisdom. These techniques can help you to make better decisions. Bukowski himself embodied this principle, balancing apparent laziness with periods of intense productivity. Often perceived as a disheveled alcoholic, lazing around and shirking responsibility, he wrote prolifically, producing hundreds of poems, short stories, and novels throughout his career. This apparent contradiction reveals a deeper understanding of his creative process. He worked hard when he felt inspired, driven by an inner compulsion, but he didn't force it when the muse was silent. Consider a writer who adheres to a strict daily schedule, forcing themselves to write for a certain number of hours, regardless of whether they feel inspired. This approach can lead to burnout, creative stagnation, and a sense of resentment towards the writing process. Bukowski, on the other hand, allowed himself to be guided by his intuition, writing when the urge struck and resting when it didn't. His daily routine, or lack thereof, reflected this philosophy. He'd wake up late, often hungover, and spend the morning reading, listening to music, or simply observing the world around him. In the afternoon, he'd often work a menial job, such as a postal clerk, which provided him with material for his writing and kept him grounded in the realities of everyday life. In the evening, he'd drink, socialize, and write, often late into the night. The important thing is that Bukowski didn't try to force his creativity. He allowed it to emerge naturally, trusting that when the time was right, the words would flow. Ultimately, overcoming resistance, both internal and external, is crucial for embracing the don't push philosophy. Internal resistance, such as fear and limiting beliefs, can prevent us from trusting the flow of life and taking necessary action. External resistance, such as societal pressure and criticism, can make it difficult to stay true to our own values and beliefs. So how do we identify and release these blocks? Internal resistance often manifests as fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. We might tell ourselves, I'm not good enough, or I don't deserve success, or I'm afraid of what others will think. These limiting beliefs act as self-fulfilling prophecies, preventing us from taking risks, pursuing our goals, and living authentically. Recognizing these patterns, confronting them with contrary evidence, and challenging their validity are key steps in overcoming them. For instance, if you find yourself thinking, I'm not good enough, ask yourself, what evidence do I have to support this belief? What evidence contradicts it? You might realize that you're basing your self-assessment on unrealistic expectations or past failures. External resistance can be just as challenging to overcome. We live in a society that often rewards conformity and punishes those who dare to be different. When we choose to live in accordance with don't push, prioritizing our own values and intuition over societal expectations, we may face criticism, disapproval, and even ostracism. How can we navigate this pressure and stay true to ourselves? Setting boundaries, communicating assertively, and finding supportive communities are good strategies. Communicate your needs and expectations clearly and respectfully, while also being willing to compromise and negotiate. Surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals who share your values and support your journey can provide you with strength and encouragement to stay the course and ignore the detractors. Bukowski, for instance, faced constant criticism for his writing style, his lifestyle choices, and his unconventional views. He was often dismissed as a vulgar, misogynistic drunkard, a literary outsider who didn't deserve to be taken seriously. How did he respond to these attacks? He embraced his outsider status, defying societal norms and using it as a source of creative inspiration. His defiance became a hallmark of his persona, a middle finger to the establishment, a declaration of his artistic freedom. He refused to conform to literary conventions, writing in a raw, unfiltered style that reflected his own unique voice and perspective. He didn't care what the critics said, and he didn't try to please anyone but himself. By removing internal blocks and aligning with the natural flow of life, we can tap into our creative potential and experience a sense of effortless productivity. Don't push can unlock creativity and flow. The increased space will give you room to express your ideas. What does embracing "don't push" look like when implemented? It means less stress, more creativity, and an authentic, fulfilling life. What is authenticity after all? The benefits of "don't push" extend far beyond stress reduction. By prioritizing personal values, embracing the present moment, and aligning with the natural flow of life, we can experience a deeper sense of meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. It means living in accordance with your own values, pursuing your own passions, and creating a life that is truly your own. It's about accepting yourself, flaws and all, and cultivating a sense of self-compassion. It's about recognizing that you're worthy of love, respect, and happiness, regardless of your achievements or external circumstances. As we consider the positive impacts of "don't push," we can see how it serves as an antidote to external validation and societal pressure. As we move toward the conclusion, we'll examine how living life by the "don't push" philosophy shifts our focus to self-acceptance, self-compassion, and living in accordance with personal values. Now, let's explore how we can cultivate this sense of self-acceptance, shift our focus to our values, and move toward understanding the power of observation, seeing the path unfold before us, which is a crucial component of Charles Bukowski's approach to life. Don't push is not passive inaction, but rather a heightened state of awareness. It requires cultivating a deep sensitivity to both internal cues, your energy levels, emotions, and physical sensations, and external circumstances, the opportunities and obstacles that present themselves in the world around you. Without this cultivation, it is very easy to fall into inaction and apathy. How can you tell when you're truly practicing "don't push" versus simply avoiding responsibility? Consider a stock trader, a perfect example of someone who needs acute awareness. A trader embracing "don't push" doesn't frantically buy and sell stocks based on every fleeting market fluctuation. They patiently observe market trends, analyze economic indicators, and wait for the opportune moment to strike. They recognize that forcing trades based on fear or greed often leads to losses. In contrast, a trader blindly following a strategy, ignoring market signals, and forcing trades regardless of the circumstances is likely to suffer significant setbacks. That trader is pushing rather than observing and allowing. What differentiates the effective trader who waits for the right moment from the ineffective one who blindly rushes in? This distinction highlights the art of timing inherent in "don't push." It's about recognizing when the path is clear, when the energy is flowing, and when the conditions are ripe for action. It's about aligning your efforts with the natural rhythms of life, rather than forcing things against resistance. Think of a musician waiting for inspiration to strike. An authentic artist doesn't chain themselves to a rigid schedule, forcing themselves to compose music when they feel creatively barren. Instead, they immerse themselves in experiences, listen to their inner muse, and wait for inspiration to ignite their imagination. They understand that forcing creativity can lead to stale, uninspired work. However, the professional knows that deadlines exist. The trick is to find the balance and let the best ideas come to you, and not to force those ideas into existence. What is the critical difference between waiting patiently for inspiration and simply procrastinating? Bukowski himself exemplified this approach in his writing process. He didn't cloister himself in an ivory tower, concocting elaborate plots and crafting meticulously polished prose. Instead, he immersed himself in the raw, unfiltered reality of everyday life. He observed the people around him, the barflies, the gamblers, the down-and-out characters who populated his world. He absorbed their stories, their struggles, and their unique perspectives. And then he translated those observations into his distinctive, unflinching prose, capturing the gritty details of life with remarkable precision. In his poem, So You Want to Be a Writer, he stresses the importance of letting writing come naturally, arguing that if it doesn't erupt from within you despite everything, then don't do it at all. Consider his ability to describe a bar fight in vivid detail, capturing the chaotic energy, the brutal violence, and the underlying desperation of the participants. This wasn't the product of imagination. It was the result of keen observation, of paying close attention to the nuances of human behavior and the dynamics of social interaction. Contrast this with writers who rely on fantasy or formulaic plots, creating characters and situations that feel artificial and contrived. Bukowski's work resonated with readers precisely because it was rooted in reality, in the unvarnished truth of human experience. How can we apply this principle of observation to our own lives, even if we're not writers? So let's consider some concrete scenarios where "don't push" can be applied. Imagine someone at a career crossroads, torn between a high-paying job that makes them miserable and a fulfilling but less lucrative role that aligns with their values and passions. Applying "don't push" in this situation might involve taking a step back, assessing their true priorities, and recognizing that external rewards don't necessarily equate to inner fulfillment. Perhaps they realize that the stress and dissatisfaction of the high-paying job are negatively impacting their health, relationships, and overall well-being. In that case, "don't push" might guide them to choose the less lucrative role, even if it means sacrificing some financial security. The key is to prioritize their values and passions, trusting that the right opportunities will emerge. Contrast this with someone who blindly chases promotions and accolades, sacrificing their happiness and well-being in the process. What if you're struggling with something less dramatic than a career change? Now consider someone struggling with a creative project. They might be experiencing writer's block, feeling uninspired, or facing technical challenges that seem insurmountable. "Don't push" can help them to release resistance, tap into the flow state, and allow their creativity to unfold naturally. This might involve abandoning the project temporarily, taking a break to recharge, or seeking inspiration from other sources. Or it might mean experimenting with different approaches, trying new techniques, or collaborating with others. A painter who abandons a painting when they hit an impasse and returns to it later when they have a fresh perspective is a perfect example of "don't push." Instead of forcing themselves to finish, even when frustrated, they allow the painting to evolve organically. How can the "don't push" method be applied to our relationships with others? Consider a couple arguing about housework. Instead of engaging in a power struggle, each demanding that the other do more, they can apply "don't push" by accepting each other's limitations, appreciating their contributions, and finding creative solutions that work for both of them. This might involve dividing tasks based on preferences and abilities, hiring a cleaning service to alleviate the burden, or simply letting go of perfectionism and accepting that the house won't always be spotless. "Don't push" encourages acceptance, empathy, and non-judgment, fostering healthier connections. What if one partner is overly critical and controlling, constantly nitpicking the other's efforts? At its core, "don't push" is fundamentally about rejecting conformity and living on your own terms. It's about aligning your actions with your inner values, rather than seeking external validation. Bukowski's refusal to conform to literary conventions serves as a powerful example. He didn't try to write like the established authors of his time, nor did he cater to the expectations of critics or academics. He wrote in his own voice, in his own style, about his own experiences, regardless of what anyone else thought. What can we learn from Bukowski's rejection of conformity? Don't push also encourages embracing imperfection, both in yourself and in others. It's about recognizing that flaws are an inherent part of the human experience and that they can even be sources of beauty and strength. Bukowski's writing is a testament to this principle. His style was raw, unpolished, and often grammatically incorrect. Yet, it was precisely this imperfection that gave his work its authenticity, its power, and its unique appeal. His work is a rejection of the pressure to present a perfect image online. How does the relentless pursuit of perfection impact our lives and our relationships? Ultimately, authenticity is a lifelong journey, not a destination. It requires a continual exploration of your values, passions, and beliefs, and a willingness to live in alignment with your true self, even when it's difficult. Take some time to write down your values, identifying the principles that are most important to you. Then, assess how well your current actions and choices align with those values. Are you living in accordance with your true self, or are you compromising your values to meet the expectations of others? What steps can you take to bridge the gap between your values and your actions? It's important to acknowledge the challenges of practicing "don't push" in the modern world, particularly in a culture that glorifies productivity and relentless self-improvement. The pressure to always be hustling, to constantly be optimizing and achieving, can be overwhelming. How can we resist this pressure and prioritize our well-being without sacrificing our goals? We can start by setting boundaries, learning to say no to commitments that drain our energy, and prioritizing activities that nourish our souls. Companies that promote a more balanced and sustainable approach to work recognize that employees who are rested, engaged, and fulfilled are ultimately more productive and creative. This is in direct contrast to those companies that demand endless hours from their employees. Is it irresponsible to quit your job and pursue your dreams, or is it irresponsible to stay in a job that is slowly killing you? Don't push may seem impractical in a world where financial security is often prioritized above all else. Finding a balance between pursuing your passions and meeting your financial needs is a challenge. Responsible risk-taking, such as starting a side hustle, seeking part-time work, or downsizing your lifestyle, can provide you with the financial freedom to pursue your passions without jeopardizing your stability. This is different from the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, where people obsessively save money to retire as early as possible, potentially missing out on experiences and opportunities in the present. Finally, some might be concerned that "don't push" may lead to selfishness or apathy. However, it's entirely possible to embrace "don't push" while still being a responsible and engaged member of society. By acting in alignment with your values, you can contribute to the world in a way that is both authentic and meaningful. Compassionate action arises from a place of inner peace and understanding. By accepting what is, we can stop fighting reality and start living more fully in the present moment. Connecting "don't push" to mindfulness and meditation can be a valuable tool for cultivating acceptance and reducing stress. You can't force a flower to bloom, you have to create the right conditions and let it bloom. People who are constantly regretting the past or worrying about the future are in direct contrast to this. By releasing resistance and embracing the natural flow of life, we can unlock our full potential and create a life that is both meaningful and fulfilling. Now, I challenge you to experiment with "don't push" in your own lives. Start small, observe the results, and adjust your approach as needed. But what is the ultimate revelation of living this way? "Don't push" is not merely about observing external circumstances. It's also about attuning yourself to your inner landscape, to the subtle whispers of intuition that guide you toward your true path. But how do you distinguish between genuine intuition and wishful thinking, between a signal from your inner compass and a fleeting impulse? Genuine intuition transcends logical reasoning. It's a deep knowing that arises from within, a sense of certainty that defies explanation. While logic relies on facts, data, and analysis, intuition taps into a broader network of information, drawing on past experiences, unconscious associations, and even subtle sensory cues that bypass conscious awareness. Someone who relies solely on logic might analyze a situation meticulously, weighing pros and cons, consulting experts, and gathering all available data. While a person attuned to their intuition will still analyze, that person may also notice a subtle feeling of unease, a nagging sense that something is off, despite the logical arguments in favor of a particular course of action. This feeling is their intuition speaking, cautioning them against a potentially harmful decision. It is that gut feeling when something doesn't feel quite right. How can you learn to discern these subtle signals and trust your inner voice? Cultivating intuition requires practices that quiet the mind, sharpen your senses, and create space for inner wisdom to emerge. Mindfulness meditation is invaluable, training you to observe your thoughts and emotions without judgment, allowing you to notice the subtle nuances of your inner experience. Dedicate even just 10 minutes each day to sitting quietly, focusing on your breath, and observing your thoughts as they arise and pass away. You can think of thoughts as clouds passing by in the sky. Journaling can also be a powerful tool, providing a safe space to explore your feelings, record your dreams, and reflect on your experiences. Writing down your thoughts and feelings can bring clarity and help you identify recurring patterns and intuitive insights. Spending time in nature can also be deeply restorative, immersing you in the sensory richness of the natural world, quieting the mind, and opening you to the subtle wisdom of the earth. Someone who meditates daily might experience a greater sense of calm, clarity, and connection to their inner self, while someone who ignores their inner feelings might find themselves constantly buffeted by external pressures, struggling to make decisions, and feeling disconnected from their true desires. Is it possible to connect intuition to Bukowski's creative process? Bukowski's work embodies the power of intuition. He didn't meticulously plan his poems or stories, constructing intricate plots and crafting elaborate characters. Instead, he allowed his writing to flow organically, guided by his gut feelings, his raw emotions, and his unfiltered observations of the world around him. In his poem, The Shoelace, he describes the seemingly insignificant act of tying a shoelace, transforming it into a profound meditation on life, death, and the absurdity of human existence. This wasn't the product of conscious calculation, but a spontaneous expression of his inner world, a testament to the power of intuition to reveal meaning in the most mundane of circumstances. Contrast this with writers who adhere strictly to formulas, churning out predictable plots and stark characters, lacking the spark of originality and the depth of emotional resonance. How can the don't push method apply in advanced scenarios? Consider a software engineer. A software engineer is passionate about AI, but stuck in a soul-crushing corporate job writing code for outdated systems. They dream of transitioning into the AI field, but they lack the necessary experience, and the job market is competitive. Don't push might guide them to explore different paths. Taking online courses to acquire new skills, attending industry events to network with professionals, contributing to open-source AI projects to build a portfolio, or even volunteering their skills to a non-profit organization. The key is to remain patient, persistent, and attuned to opportunities that align with their values and interests. Forcing things might involve quitting their job without a backup plan, blindly applying for AI positions for which they're unqualified, or becoming discouraged by initial rejections. Instead, they carefully build the skill set, connections, and experience necessary for success, trusting that the right opportunity will emerge. How does this contrast with someone who immediately dives in headfirst? Now picture a painter struggling with a creative block. They've tried everything to break through: sketching, brainstorming, experimenting with different techniques, but the canvas remains blank, their inspiration dry. Don't push might guide them to step away from the work completely, to immerse themselves in other activities that nourish their soul, spending time in nature, listening to music, reading poetry, or simply relaxing and allowing their mind to wander. The painter needs to give themselves time to forget about the block and let themselves recharge. They might eventually experience a sudden burst of inspiration. They could return to the canvas with a fresh perspective, ready to approach the work with renewed energy and enthusiasm. Someone who forces themselves to continue painting despite feeling uninspired might end up creating a work that feels stale, contrived, and lacking in emotional depth. It's like trying to squeeze water from a stone. What if the issue is about relationship conflict? Imagine a couple caught in a heated argument, each partner feeling unheard, misunderstood, and attacked. Don't push might guide them to take a step back, to create space for emotions to cool down, and to approach the conflict with empathy, curiosity, and a willingness to understand the other's perspective. In this scenario, they could use active listening, repeating back what they heard their partner say. Instead of escalating the conflict by yelling, name-calling, or making accusations, they attempt to de-escalate the situation by listening. The goal is to find a solution that honors both of their needs. Someone who pushes might continue to argue, attempting to control their partner. Now, let's bring core values into the equation. What is the foundation of authenticity? Don't push is most effective when aligned with a clear understanding of your core values, the fundamental principles that guide your decisions, shape your actions, and define your sense of self. Are you passionate about creativity, connection, adventure, or something else? Identifying and prioritizing these values provides a compass for navigating life's complexities, ensuring that your choices are authentic, meaningful, and aligned with your true purpose. Take some time to reflect on your life, identifying the moments when you felt most alive, most engaged, and most fulfilled. What values were being honored in those moments? List the values and begin to prioritize them. Next, let's discuss how values can be reflected in life. Translating your core values into concrete actions requires a conscious effort to align your daily habits, your relationships, and your career choices with your inner truth. If freedom is a core value, this might mean seeking out opportunities for autonomy and self-direction in your work, prioritizing travel and exploration in your personal life, or cultivating relationships that allow you to express your individuality without judgment. If connection is a core value, this might mean dedicating time to nurturing your relationships with loved ones, volunteering in your community, or seeking out opportunities to collaborate and connect with others. Does this mean potentially making big changes? It very well could. To live in alignment with your values requires honesty and courage, a willingness to make difficult choices, and a commitment to living authentically, even when it's uncomfortable. Someone living a life aligned with their values radiates authenticity, integrity, and purpose, inspiring others to do the same, while someone who compromises their values may experience feelings of emptiness, dissatisfaction, and resentment. How can we see this in Bukowski's life? Bukowski's life was a testament to the power of values-driven living. Despite facing poverty, rejection, and societal disapproval, he remained steadfastly committed to his core values of freedom, honesty, and creative expression. His refusal to conform to literary conventions, his unflinching portrayal of the darker aspects of human existence, and his dedication to writing in his own voice all reflected his unwavering commitment to these values. He lived and died by his values. Someone who sacrificed their values for success might achieve external recognition and material wealth, but they would ultimately feel empty and unfulfilled, lacking the inner peace and satisfaction that come from living an authentic life. Is there a sweet spot between pushing and allowing? Life is not a binary choice between pushing and allowing, but a dynamic dance between the two, a constant ebb and flow of action and surrender. There are times when we need to exert effort, take initiative, and push through obstacles to achieve our goals. And there are times when we need to step back, surrender to the process, and trust that the universe will provide what we need. Life is best viewed as a rhythm. Think of the tide coming in and going out. The tide is the ultimate expression of the ebb and flow of the ocean's energy. It teaches us about cycles, patience, and surrender. To become a skilled surfer, you must learn how to recognize when to paddle hard and catch a wave, and when to simply float and wait for the next opportunity. Some people go through life pushing, attempting to control every aspect of their experience. They find themselves exhausted, stressed, and constantly battling against resistance. Others allow, passively accepting whatever comes their way. Neither is ideal. This brings us back to intuition. Intuition can be the key to navigating the rhythm. It allows you to discern when to push forward and when to step back, when to take action and when to wait patiently. Interpreting internal signals such as tiredness or stress and external signals like opportunities or setbacks helps you decide when to take action. Trusting your inner compass, paying attention to your energy levels, and observing the circumstances around you can guide you to make wise decisions that align with the natural flow of life. You can contrast this to people who ignore these signals, blindly pushing ahead regardless of the consequences or passively waiting for things to happen without taking any initiative. What is the ultimate result of living this way? The ultimate goal is not simply to reduce stress or increase productivity, but to cultivate a life of harmony, authenticity, and fulfillment, a life where pushing and allowing are in perfect balance. It's about aligning your actions with your values, honoring your inner wisdom, and trusting the process of life, knowing that you are always guided, supported, and loved. What then is the grand answer to our "don't push" exploration? What is this grand answer? It is the understanding that the ego, with its incessant need for control and validation, is perhaps the primary source of resistance in life. The ego is that part of ourselves that craves recognition, fears failure, and clings to specific outcomes, creating a constant state of tension and dissatisfaction. Understanding this, how can you identify the attachments and desires that fuel ego-driven pushing? Start by observing your emotional reactions to everyday events. Do you become easily frustrated when things don't go your way? Do you find yourself constantly comparing yourself to others, measuring your worth by external standards? These are telltale signs of egoic attachment. Someone driven by ego might become fixated on climbing the corporate ladder, sacrificing their personal well-being and their relationships in pursuit of status and power. They are likely to feel anxious, stressed, and unfulfilled, constantly striving for more, never truly satisfied with what they have. Conversely, someone grounded in their authentic self might approach their career with a sense of purpose and enjoyment, focusing on contributing their unique talents and skills, rather than seeking external validation. True liberation lies in detachment, which is not apathy or indifference, but rather freedom from the emotional turmoil caused by unmet expectations. It is the ability to embrace the present moment without clinging to specific outcomes, allowing life to unfold naturally without resistance. Healthy detachment involves recognizing that you are not your thoughts, your feelings, or your possessions, that your worth is not contingent on external circumstances, and that you are capable of finding joy and contentment regardless of what life throws your way. Unhealthy detachment, on the other hand, manifests as avoidance, suppression, or emotional numbness. A person who is unhealthily detached might avoid intimacy, suppress their emotions, or become emotionally isolated, creating a barrier between themselves and the world. Contrast this to someone who is healthily detached. They are fully present in their lives, engaged in their relationships, and connected to their emotions, but they are not defined or controlled by them. They can experience the full range of human emotions without becoming overwhelmed or reactive, responding to life with equanimity and grace. Bukowski's life exemplifies this freedom. He was remarkably detached from the need for fame, wealth, and recognition, which allowed him to create art that was raw, honest, and unflinchingly authentic. He wrote about taboo subjects, explored the darker aspects of human existence, and challenged societal norms, all without fear of judgment or rejection. His detachment was a source of creative power. Had Bukowski sought fame like so many artists, he would not have been able to reach the levels of raw expression that marked his work. Now, let's contrast that with other artists. An artist who seeks fame might compromise their artistic vision, pandering to popular tastes, churning out formulaic works, and ultimately sacrificing their authenticity in pursuit of external validation. How does the philosophy of "don't push" play out within the intricate web of human relationships? The key lies in understanding the dynamics of interdependence. "Don't push" fosters healthy interdependence, where individuals support each other without losing their autonomy, creating relationships based on mutual respect, trust, and freedom. Interdependent relationships are characterized by open communication, emotional support, and a shared commitment to growth and well-being, but without sacrificing individual identity or autonomy. Contrast this with codependent relationships, which are marked by an unhealthy reliance on each other, where individuals lose their sense of self in the relationship. Similarly, enmeshed relationships involve a blurring of boundaries, where individuals become overly involved in each other's lives, suffocating each other's individuality and autonomy. If dependence is on one extreme, independence is on another. Interdependence strikes the perfect balance. The acceptance of imperfection is an integral component of "don't push," leading to greater understanding and compassion in relationships. By letting go of unrealistic expectations, individuals can cultivate empathy and compassion, creating space for growth, forgiveness, and unconditional love. What would the push approach be versus the allow approach when dealing with a partner's annoying habit, such as leaving dirty dishes in the sink? The push approach might involve nagging, criticizing, or demanding that the partner change their behavior, creating tension, resentment, and conflict. The allow approach, on the other hand, might involve accepting the partner's imperfection, communicating your needs calmly and respectfully, and focusing on finding solutions that work for both of you. This might involve setting clear boundaries, delegating household chores, or simply learning to let go of your need for control. Someone who approaches their relationships with acceptance cultivates empathy, forgiveness, and understanding, creating a space for authentic connection and growth, while someone who clings to unrealistic expectations experiences constant disappointment, resentment, and conflict, undermining the foundation of their relationships. Bukowski's relationships, though often tumultuous, reflected a commitment to accepting people as they were, flaws and all. Even amidst the chaos and turmoil, there was a level of raw honesty and unconditional regard that reflected his commitment to the principles of "don't push." Take his relationship with Jane Cooney Baker. Both were deeply flawed individuals, struggling with alcoholism, insecurity, and emotional instability. Yet they accepted each other despite their shortcomings, creating a bond that was both destructive and deeply meaningful. It was far from perfect, but it was theirs. Contrast this sort of acceptance with today's cancel culture, where individuals are often judged harshly for their mistakes, condemned for expressing unpopular opinions, and ostracized from society for failing to meet certain ideological standards. In our current cancel culture, many are unable to move past small issues that, in comparison to life in Bukowski's time, seem completely inconsequential. How can the principles of "don't push" extend beyond our personal relationships and inform our engagement with the world at large? The answer lies in what is called engaged detachment. contributing to action for social change without clinging to specific outcomes. Engaged detachment involves being actively engaged in the world, working towards positive change, but detached from the need for immediate gratification or external validation. This approach fosters resilience, prevents burnout, and allows us to contribute to the world with a sense of purpose, joy, and equanimity. For example, in the fight for climate change solutions, engaged detachment might involve supporting renewable energy initiatives, advocating for policy changes, and educating others about the importance of environmental stewardship, but without becoming attached to a specific policy or timeline. What would that look like versus if you didn't accept the tenets of don't push? Someone who isn't detached might become overwhelmed by the scale of the problem, frustrated by political gridlock, and disillusioned by the slow pace of progress, leading to burnout, despair, and inaction. With engaged detachment, you focus on what you can control: your own actions, your own choices, and your own contributions, trusting that your efforts will contribute to the greater good, even if the results are not immediately apparent. Setting goals and pursuing them with intention, but without becoming attached to the results, is another example. The key is to focus on the process, rather than the outcome, trusting that everything will unfold as it should. For example, setting a goal to write a novel, but not fixating on publication, allows one to enjoy the creative process, explore their imagination, and hone their craft without being driven by the need for external validation. Here, the flow state flourishes. Someone obsessed with a specific outcome might become anxious, perfectionistic, and creatively blocked, ultimately hindering their ability to write a great novel. Bukowski's legacy stands as a testament to the power of authenticity and defiance. He inspired countless individuals to embrace their true selves, reject societal norms, and pursue their creative passions without apology. He showed us that it's okay to be different, to be flawed, to be real. This is why he continues to resonate as a countercultural icon. In stark contrast, more conventional writers are often praised for their technical skill, their commercial success, and their ability to conform to literary conventions, but their work may lack the emotional depth, the raw honesty, and the transformative power of Bukowski's writing. Ultimately, Don't Push is about accepting the impermanent nature of reality. Everything is constantly changing, evolving, and transforming, and clinging to fixed ideas or expectations only leads to suffering. The acceptance of impermanence is the cornerstone of wisdom, compassion, and inner peace. The old adage says, all things must pass. Change is the only constant in the universe. To desperately resist change is a recipe for disaster. Someone who accepts the ever-changing nature of life approaches challenges with flexibility, resilience, and a sense of adventure, adapting to new circumstances, embracing new opportunities, and finding joy in the midst of uncertainty. Conversely, someone who desperately resists change becomes rigid, inflexible, and prone to anxiety, clinging to the past, fearing the future, and missing out on the richness and beauty of the present moment. If everything is always changing, how can anyone find stability? Paradoxically, when you let go of your need for stability, you discover greater peace and freedom. This isn't about giving up on your dreams or abandoning your goals, but rather about surrendering to the flow of life, trusting that everything is unfolding as it should, and finding contentment in the present moment, regardless of what the future may hold. Why is it important to let go of our attachment to outcomes and instead embrace the flow of impermanence? Contrast this with someone who fears it. Someone who embraces impermanence cultivates a sense of inner peace, resilience, and adaptability, finding joy in the midst of change and living each moment to the fullest. Someone who fears impermanence becomes anxious, rigid, and controlling, constantly trying to protect themselves from the inevitable changes of life, and ultimately missing out on the beauty and richness of the present moment. Don't Push is not a passive philosophy, but a powerful path to authentic living, aligning with the natural flow of life, embracing imperfection, and finding freedom from the need for control. It is a journey of self-discovery, a process of letting go, and a celebration of the human spirit. What lasting insight can we glean from Don't Push? How does the legacy of Don't Push provide us a path to connect with the inherent impermanence of life? Contrast this way of thinking with a rigid perspective. As we prepare to conclude our exploration, keep in mind how Don't Push can help you find your way. Don't Push is a powerful path to authentic living, aligning with the natural flow of life, embracing imperfection, and finding freedom from the need for control. It is a journey of self-discovery, a process of letting go, and a celebration of the human spirit. But how does this path truly help you find your way? The answer lies in what is called active surrender. Active surrender entails embracing reality, not as a sign of weakness, but as a conscious choice, a deliberate alignment with the present moment. Surrender is often perceived as a concession of defeat, a passive resignation to circumstances beyond one's control. However, true surrender is a position of strength, a strategic move in the game of life, rather than giving up. What does active surrender look like? Imagine a martial artist who, instead of rigidly resisting an opponent's force, redirects it, using their momentum against them. They aren't passively giving in, they're actively utilizing the situation to their advantage. Conversely, someone who passively resigns might simply give up when faced with a challenge, succumbing to feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. They may feel victimized by circumstances, lacking the agency to shape their own lives. Active surrender involves carefully choosing your battles. It's about discerning which situations warrant your energy and which are best left alone, allowing you to conserve your focus for what truly matters. In today's world, there are many energy vampires that can drain your resources if you aren't paying attention. These people are often negative, demanding, or manipulative, leaving you feeling exhausted and depleted. Actively surrendering in this context might mean setting boundaries, limiting contact, or simply refusing to engage in draining conflicts. Contrast that with someone who fights every battle, feeling compelled to defend their opinions, prove their worth, or control every situation. They're often stressed, anxious, and overwhelmed, constantly expending energy on conflicts that yield little to no benefit. Bukowski was seen by some as lazy. He conserved his energy for writing, rejecting anything that didn't align with his creative pursuits. In reality, he was simply a master of active surrender. He was not truly lazy, but rather highly selective, focusing his energy on what truly mattered to him, rather than squandering it on trivial pursuits. An analysis of Bukowski's daily routine reveals that he prioritized writing above all else, often working late into the night, fueled by alcohol and cigarettes. He avoided social obligations, mundane tasks, and anything that distracted him from his creative process. Contrast this with someone who is always busy, constantly multitasking, and filling their schedule with activities that don't align with their goals or values. They may feel productive, but rarely accomplish anything meaningful, lacking the focus and intention necessary to make a real impact. Pushing seems necessary at times, but is actually counterproductive. It's important to recognize the signs of forced effort, frustration, tension, lack of progress, and shift gears when necessary. The myth of no pain, no gain in fitness often leads people to push themselves too hard, ignoring their body's signals and risking injury. Contrast this with listening to your body, adjusting your workout accordingly, and focusing on sustainable progress, which yields better results in the long run. While discipline is required, make sure that you are not causing long-term damage. Instead, channel your efforts effectively. The goal is not to avoid effort altogether, but to align your actions with the natural flow of energy, finding activities that feel effortless and engaging, rather than forced and draining. Working on a passion project often feels effortless and energizing, allowing you to tap into your creativity and flow. Time seems to disappear, challenges become opportunities, and the work itself is its own reward. What would happen if you took that away? Working a job you hate, on the other hand, often feels draining and unfulfilling, requiring you to force yourself to show up each day, counting down the hours until you can escape. While Bukowski's style seems spontaneous, his willingness to revise and edit shows a certain effort. He knew when to push and when to let go, when to edit or not. Even someone as seemingly unfiltered as Bukowski understood the importance of refining his work, honing his craft, and ensuring that his message resonated with readers. Discussing Bukowski's editing process reveals his blend of spontaneity and deliberate craft. He would often write quickly and impulsively, capturing his thoughts and emotions in raw form, but then he would meticulously revise and edit his work, honing his language, tightening his structure, and ensuring that each word served its purpose. Compare this with writers who are too attached to their first drafts, unwilling to let go of their initial ideas, and unable to see their work objectively. Suffering comes from resisting what is. Consider accepting difficult emotions rather than trying to suppress or avoid them. Much of our suffering stems from resisting the inevitable challenges and setbacks of life. The Buddhist philosophy teaches us to embrace impermanence, to accept that everything is constantly changing, and to let go of our attachments to fixed ideas and expectations. Contrast someone who accepts their fate, finding peace and resilience in the face of adversity, with someone who resists it, becoming bitter, resentful, and consumed by their suffering. Clinging to something that cannot be held is a great source of anguish. Acknowledge and feel all emotions without judgment. Don't avoid emotions, embrace them. All emotions, good and bad, are part of the human experience, and suppressing them only leads to greater suffering. By acknowledging and accepting your emotions, you can process them, learn from them, and move forward with greater wisdom and resilience. Contrast someone who embraces their emotions, allowing themselves to feel the full range of human experience, with someone who avoids them, suppressing their feelings, and building up a reservoir of unexpressed emotions that can eventually explode. Bukowski embraced the dark side of life, the pain, the suffering, the loneliness, and found beauty and meaning in it. His art was born from his ability to confront and accept difficult emotions, allowing him to transform his pain into something beautiful and meaningful. Discuss Bukowski's willingness to write about taboo subjects, like alcoholism and poverty, which reflected his unflinching honesty and his commitment to portraying the realities of human existence without sugarcoating or glorifying them. Contrast this with artists who only focus on the positive, avoiding difficult or uncomfortable topics, and ultimately creating work that lacks depth, authenticity, and emotional resonance. The ultimate expression of "don't push" involves trusting that there is a force greater than ourselves at work in the universe. Like a river flowing to the ocean, trust guides and sustains our efforts, shaping our eventual destiny. One can surrender to a higher power. This isn't necessarily about religious faith, but about cultivating a deep sense of trust that everything happens for a reason, even when we don't understand it at the time. Contrast someone who goes with the flow, trusting that everything will work out in the end, with someone who fights it, constantly trying to control every aspect of their life and ultimately exhausting themselves in the process. Cultivate a deep sense of trust that everything happens for a reason, even when we don't understand it at the time. Embrace divine timing. Things often unfold in unexpected ways, and setbacks can often lead to unexpected opportunities. Contrast someone who trusts the process, finding peace and contentment in the midst of uncertainty, with someone who always has to be in control, becoming anxious, stressed, and frustrated when things don't go according to plan. Those who always seek control are in for a rude awakening. Bukowski, despite his cynicism, had a surprising spiritual dimension, a deep sense of fatalism that reflects a kind of trust in the universe. This allowed him to live without fear. His poems about death and destiny reflect his acceptance of the unknown, his willingness to confront the impermanence of life, and his belief that everything is ultimately beyond our control. Contrast this with people who can't control their fear of death, clinging to life with desperation, and missing out on the beauty and richness of the present moment. But to what extent did Bukowski embrace this peace? And how can you embrace that peace within your own life? But to what extent did Bukowski embrace this peace? And how can you embrace that peace within your own life? The foundation of Don't Push lies in embracing uncertainty, recognizing that it's an unavoidable aspect of existence, and that attempting to eradicate it is a futile endeavor. Acknowledging that life is inherently unpredictable is the initial stride toward internalizing the Don't Push philosophy. Consider the myriad events that lie beyond your sphere of influence. The sudden emergence of black swan events that can upend entire industries, the capricious fluctuations of the market, or the unexpected detours that life throws your way, reshaping your plans and destinies. Attempting to exert control over these uncontrollable elements is akin to battling the wind. It's an exercise in futility that only breeds frustration. Instead, the path to serenity lies in adaptation, in learning to navigate the currents of change with grace and resilience. This requires a fundamental shift in perspective, from viewing chaos as a menacing force to recognizing its potential as a catalyst for opportunity and growth. When things don't unfold according to your meticulously laid plans, it opens the door to the discovery of uncharted territories and unforeseen possibilities. Imagine a business that faces a sudden market disruption, such as the emergence of a groundbreaking technology or a shift in consumer preferences. A rigid company, clinging to its established strategies, will likely crumble under the pressure. Conversely, a flexible and adaptive business, one that embraces the chaos, can pivot its operations, explore new markets, and emerge even stronger than before. This adaptability requires a willingness to let go of preconceived notions, to experiment with novel approaches, and to view setbacks not as defeats, but as valuable learning experiences. Embracing change creates inner strength, enabling us to adapt to new environments and challenges with enthusiasm. Bukowski exemplified this principle, navigating a chaotic world not by seeking to control it, but by embracing its inherent unpredictability as a source of inspiration and creative fuel. He didn't shy away from uncertainty. Rather, he dove headfirst into the turbulent waters of life, allowing his experiences to shape his art. Consider how he transformed his encounters with poverty, alcoholism, and dead-end jobs into the raw and powerful literature that defined his legacy. He didn't sanitize his experiences or attempt to portray a romanticized version of reality. Instead, he laid bare the gritty truths of his existence, allowing his readers to connect with his work on a deeply personal level. Compare this approach to someone who seeks a stable and predictable life, meticulously planning every detail, avoiding risks, and striving for a sense of control. While such a life may appear secure on the surface, it often lacks the depth, vibrancy, and authenticity that come from embracing the unknown. This brings us to the understanding of the long game and how it ties into Don't Push. Patience and perseverance are absolutely essential for achieving long-term goals. The modern world often tempts us with instant gratification, promising immediate results and effortless success. However, true and lasting achievement rarely comes easily. It requires dedication, resilience, and a willingness to play the long game. Whether you're building a successful business from the ground up, painstakingly mastering a musical instrument, or cultivating a meaningful and enduring relationship, the path to fulfillment is paved with patience and persistent effort. The allure of quick fixes and overnight success stories can be strong, but they often lead to disappointment. The key lies in understanding the value of sustained commitment, in recognizing that the most rewarding accomplishments are those that require time, effort, and unwavering belief in your vision. The Don't Push philosophy, far from hindering perseverance, can actually enhance it, enabling you to sustain your efforts over the long haul by avoiding burnout and maintaining a sense of balance. The relentless pursuit of success, often glorified in hustle culture, can lead to exhaustion, stress, and ultimately a diminished capacity for achievement. By prioritizing well-being, practicing self-care, and embracing a more sustainable approach to work and life, you can prevent burnout and maintain your energy levels for the long run. Contrast this with someone who burns the candle at both ends, sacrificing sleep, neglecting relationships, and pushing themselves to the brink of exhaustion in pursuit of their goals. While they may achieve short-term gains, they risk jeopardizing their long-term health, happiness, and ultimately their ability to sustain their success. Bukowski's literary success wasn't an overnight sensation. It was the culmination of decades of persistent writing and unwavering self-belief, even in the face of constant rejection. For years, he toiled away at the post office, writing in his spare time, churning out poems and stories that were often dismissed by editors and publishers. Yet, he never gave up on his dream, driven by an inner conviction that his voice deserved to be heard. This slow burn approach stands in stark contrast to the fleeting fame of overnight sensations, who often fade into obscurity just as quickly as they rose to prominence. Bukowski's enduring legacy is a testament to the power of patience, perseverance, and the unwavering belief in one's own unique vision. This long view helps cultivate a flow state which connects deeply to the don't push philosophy, characterized by intense focus, effortless action, and intrinsic motivation. In this state, the traditional concept of hard work dissolves, replaced by a sense of seamless engagement and effortless productivity. Athletes, artists, programmers, and countless others have experienced these moments of effortless creativity and peak performance, where time seems to disappear, challenges become opportunities, and the work itself is its own reward. The flow state is not about forcing your way through tasks. It's about aligning your energy with your intentions, tapping into your inner resources, and allowing yourself to be carried by the current of inspiration. Someone who is constantly struggling and forcing their way through tasks, battling resistance at every turn, is unlikely to experience the joy and fulfillment of the flow state. To increase your chances of achieving a flow state, you should eliminate distractions, set clear goals, and challenge yourself appropriately. In today's hyper-connected world, distractions are everywhere, vying for your attention and pulling you away from your focus. By consciously minimizing these distractions, turning off notifications, closing unnecessary tabs, and creating a dedicated workspace, you can create the mental space necessary for deep concentration. Setting clear and achievable goals provides direction and purpose, allowing you to channel your energy effectively. Finally, challenging yourself appropriately, pushing your boundaries without overwhelming yourself, keeps you engaged and motivated. Compare the potential of eliminating harmful tasks with adopting positive habits that promote focus. Harmful tasks may include mindless scrolling through social media feeds. Positive habits could include meditation. Bukowski didn't try to force inspiration. He trusted that it would come when the time was right. He cultivated a receptive state of mind, allowing ideas to percolate and emerge naturally, which resonates strongly with the flow state. His famous quote, often paraphrased as "don't try," encapsulates this approach. He didn't believe in rigidly adhering to schedules and deadlines, forcing himself to write when he wasn't feeling inspired. Instead, he waited for the muse to strike, allowing his experiences, emotions, and observations to simmer within him until they reached a point of critical mass, exploding onto the page in a torrent of raw and unfiltered expression. Contrast this with writers who rigidly adhere to schedules and deadlines, forcing themselves to write even when they're feeling uninspired, often producing work that lacks authenticity and emotional resonance. Ultimately, the "don't push" philosophy is not simply about personal well-being. It's about contributing to a more harmonious and compassionate world. By embracing authenticity, aligning with the natural flow of life, and letting go of the need for control, you not only improve your own well-being, but also create a ripple effect that inspires others to do the same. What does it truly mean to be authentic, to live in accordance with your values, and to express your true self, rather than conforming to societal expectations? How might being in a flow state create more space for compassion towards others, allowing you to connect with them on a deeper level? Consider the difference between someone who is driven by ego, constantly seeking validation and recognition, and someone who is motivated by compassion, genuinely caring about the well-being of others. The former often creates conflict and division, while the latter fosters understanding and connection. Embracing authenticity creates a ripple effect. In a world increasingly dominated by what some call the matrix, the constant bombardment of information, opinions, and expectations, the ability to think for oneself becomes even more crucial. Suggest that when you embrace authenticity and don't push, you inspire others to do the same. Explain the idea that we are all interconnected, that our actions have consequences that extend far beyond our immediate circle. In this context, authenticity becomes an act of rebellion, a powerful force for positive change. Highlight the impact of social media, for better or worse, on individual thought and expression. Contrast inauthentic social media personalities who curate their online personas to project an image of perfection with truly authentic people who embrace their imperfections, share their vulnerabilities, and connect with others on a genuine level. Therefore, it's time to break free from the matrix. Embrace the authenticity of life and live in accordance with the don't push ideal. How does the movie, The Matrix, highlight the importance of choice, of questioning reality, and of forging your own path? How can someone apply the concept of breaking free to their daily lives, challenging the assumptions, expectations, and limiting beliefs that hold them back? Compare this approach to more rigid and scheduled paths, where individuals blindly follow societal norms, sacrificing their own desires and passions in pursuit of a predetermined notion of success. As Bukowski himself would likely say, find what you love and let it kill you, but only if that love is authentic and not something imposed upon you by the world. What steps can you take to live authentically, to resist the urge to push, and to embrace the flow of life? The synthesis of don't push reveals a paradoxical power, a reconciliation of effort and acceptance. It's not an either-or choice between striving and surrendering, but a dance between the two. True power emerges from knowing when to exert force and when to yield, when to act decisively, and when to allow the currents of life to carry you. Don't push isn't passive resignation. It's an active alignment with the natural flow of existence. Surfing provides an apt metaphor. The surfer paddles vigorously to catch the wave, then gracefully surrenders to its power, riding it with skill and finesse. Imagine two contrasting figures, one constantly forcing situations, creating friction and resistance, the other relaxed and attuned, moving in harmony with the world. This harmonious movement relies heavily on discernment, that intersection of intuition and wisdom. The ability to listen to your inner voice, to interpret the subtle cues of the universe, is paramount in navigating life's complexities. Wisdom and authenticity are invaluable tools, guiding you toward choices that resonate with your true self. Street smarts, in this sense, become a form of applied intuition, enabling you to read people and situations, to discern opportunities and avoid pitfalls. Consider the contrast between someone who is merely book smart, possessing theoretical knowledge but lacking practical wisdom, and someone who possesses a deep understanding of human nature and the workings of the world. Living in alignment with your authentic self fuels the power of don't push. The more genuine your actions, the more seamlessly the philosophy integrates into your life, creating a sense of effortless flow and profound fulfillment. Your core values play a pivotal role, shaping your daily decisions and guiding you toward choices that resonate with your deepest beliefs. Picture two distinct individuals. one relentlessly pursuing societal expectations, sacrificing their own desires and passions, and one fearlessly following their heart, embracing their unique path, even when it deviates from the norm. Framing "Don't Push" as a path to finding peace and meaning provides a beacon in a chaotic world that often feels overwhelming and beyond control. By relinquishing the illusion of complete mastery over our surroundings, individuals unlock a profound sense of acceptance and inner freedom. Consider navigating a complex maze. If you know your goal, that end state can allow you to find the correct path through the maze. An individual can embrace their true self, living authentically, rather than experiencing the illusion of control. This highlights that true success transcends the attainment of external milestones. It's about cultivating a life that resonates with your core values, finding joy in the present moment, and embodying qualities that extend beyond mere accumulation. True success isn't measured by what you amass, but by who you become. Relationships, for example, hold far greater value than material possessions, enriching your life with connection, meaning, and lasting memories. Weighing the accumulation of vast wealth against a life well-lived, filled with love, purpose, and genuine experiences, provides a stark contrast. Bukowski's enduring legacy reinforces that a meaningful existence is attainable, even without adhering to conventional norms. He embraced his unique situation, transforming his struggles and unconventional experiences into powerful art that continues to resonate with readers worldwide. His work resonates even after death, and that emphasizes the power of authenticity. Picture someone who dies content but without riches versus someone wealthy but unfulfilled. The ultimate revelation: life is a journey, not a destination. By relaxing into its flow, trusting that everything unfolds perfectly, one is liberated from the shackles of stress and anxiety, freeing energy to channel toward what truly matters. The Zen concept of beginner's mind exemplifies this state, fostering openness, curiosity, and a sense of wonder in each moment. Forcing outcomes versus allowing things to unfold organically represent opposite approaches to life. The question then becomes, will you embrace impermanence and enjoy the ride? Understanding the fleeting nature of existence unlocks the potential for deeper appreciation, resilience, and a more meaningful life. Accepting what comes in the present moment empowers you to let go of attachments, expectations, and the futile pursuit of permanence. Living in the present with an understanding of the now stands in contrast to dwelling on the past or anxiously anticipating the future. Therefore, begin now. Take immediate action, however small, to live authentically and align with your values. Reflect on one area of life where you don't push, simply allowing things to unfold. Setting intentions to actively cultivate authenticity serves as a powerful catalyst for positive change. Those who take action and fully embrace the "don't push" philosophy are fundamentally different from those who perpetually postpone or never begin. To continue this journey beyond this video, explore additional resources to delve deeper into the philosophy of "don't push", such as Bukowski's works, books on mindfulness and acceptance, or related philosophical concepts. These materials can provide further insights, practical tools, and ongoing inspiration to support your exploration of this powerful philosophy. Watching this video is only the first step in a journey of self-discovery and transformation. We encourage you to share your experiences with "Don't Push" in the comments section, fostering a supportive community. What resonated most with you in this video? How has the "Don't Push" philosophy impacted your life? Start a conversation about the topic. Highlighting interesting comments from the video can create further dialogue and deeper learning. Being reclusive and keeping the knowledge to yourself is an alternative to openly sharing experiences with others. In the end, a life of meaning, purpose, and joy awaits those who embrace the "Don't Push" philosophy. By living authentically, aligning with the flow of life, and relinquishing the need for control, you unlock the potential for profound fulfillment and lasting happiness. Living authentically and acceptingly unlocks a life of meaning and purpose that far surpasses the confines of conventional success. Pushing too hard and not reaping the rewards stands in stark contrast to releasing control and discovering joy in the process.